So welcome to the April Law Pack meeting. Before we begin, we want to give a little card to Erica. So congratulate her on the birth of her child. So thank you for your work and yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Hope you can use the gift
yeah.
certificate.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you all so much.
You're welcome. We wish you well in the coming years. I would like to, I don't know if we need a motion for this, so Mary Ann, my expert, can tell me, but it might, since we have...
There's no rules right now.
There's no rules right now, but it might be worth a suggestion to move public comment. We have 2 executive sessions, and we have some people from the public here. And maybe we want to move that before the executive session so that you don't have to leave and then come back. You're welcome to, after your comment, if you want to leave and then come back for the rest of the meeting, feel free to do that. But I would suggest we give them a chance to provide comment earlier.
Take control.
Well, no. Do I need a motion for that?
This is just a presentation up here, the executive is until the end, actually.
No, there is a new
There's a new
one that has an executive session there.
Oh, I got the
Yeah. So, we don't need to do that. Is that okay with everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So, the first thing we need to do is have a motion to approve the February 8th, 2023 regular meeting minutes.
So moved.
All those in favor? Any
discussion?
Discussion first.
Just a couple of comments,
Okay.
nitpicking more than anything else. Under like the public comment section, there's no discussion, but I believe people spoke. Should those be listed in what their topics were? The other item was in the 228 item 6E and on 329 item 2.3 appear to be the same item. So I don't know if we just talked about it once but didn't make a motion and then we did, but I was confused if that was how it actually happened. And the other point would be, there are a couple places where like when Kevin's here, to actually state what his role is. And then in the narrative, when a lot of times when Mike speaks, whether he's speaking as the secretary or as the superintendent of water, and you know, it's more of a respect thing that puts him by last name, you know, Mr. Broadbent, the superintendent, or Mr. Broadbent, the secretary, just some little things like that. Same thing with Erica, should be listed by her position. We're always listed as Commissioner Holmes, Commissioner Harrison, but
Mike,
So noted.
secretary, so
yeah, no, don't need to change anything that's here, just
for future reference.
again, nitpicking.
That's fine, thank you. So, any other discussion? All those in favor of approval of the February minutes?
Pass.
Unanimous for those that are here. All right, so we need a motion to approve the March 29th, 2023 special meeting minutes. So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on those? All in favor of approving the minutes? Raise your hand.
I was absent, so I'll abstain.
I'm
Okay.
going to abstain also. 2 of
So
us.
2
I was absent.
abstentions and the rest approval. All right, thank you very much. Next is the consent agenda. Any, yes,
I'd like to ask for the water quality report not to be part of that. Just a couple of quick questions on that I have. So I can ask them now and can leave it there, or
I don't know the process for that.
We have to pull it off and
Pull it
remove
off.
it
We have
first
to
and
pull
then
it
just
off.
pass the ones in the
Okay,
consent.
so let's, is there a motion to pull it out?
I'll make that motion.
Mention.
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor of pulling that out? That's unanimous. So we'll pull that out. Let's, any discussion on the other consent agenda items, financial report or education and outreach report?
I'll make a motion to approve those.
I'll second. Any discussion? All those in favor? That's unanimous. All right, I would ask, Lynn, are your questions lengthy enough that we should wait till after public comment, or should we?
No, I believe they're very simple.
Okay.
It would be helpful for me, I know the other place I do this. What's, what are the limits on, like, what are you looking for, what's too much turbidity, what's,
Sure.
But if those were just listed, like what the range should be,
Yep.
as well as some of those other items, when it comes to not the temperature necessarily, but the E. coli and the PPPP and P/P.
First per billion, first per trillion, yep.
But they're only listed in certain areas, they're not listed, so like they're up here and then nothing, and then I turn a couple of pages, I'll find them showing up here.
Oh, the header didn't copy over, yeah.
So
Yep.
that would be helpful. Just so I can say, wow, that's getting too close to the line.
Yep.
Our guy does green check marks and red X's. That's all.
Okay, great.
I'll move that be approved.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor, approval of the water quality report? Unanimous? All right, thank you. Next, we have public comment. So anyone from the public who's here would like to speak at this time, feel free to stand up, give us your name, where you live, and let us have time to comment.
Lucia Matthew, 65 Beach Hill Road in Auburn. My wife Marge Patrick. I'm not sure that we have comments per se. We have an overall interest in what's going on because a lot of these different issues are somewhat related or overlap, and we don't abut any of them. We're just interested in what's going on.
Oh, we're happy to have you.
We run into people we know, some we don't, who have comments. Yes, no, in the middle. Some are nice, some are not. You know that better than I do, probably. So we're just interested, and we've never been. We stopped into Mike's office last week before last, whatever it was, and they gave us a map. We've looked at it several times. We're just interested in what's going on. So.
Great. Well, you're welcome to come, and any of our meetings are open, and if you have comments, you'll let us know.
All right, very good, thank you.
We will have an executive session where you'll have to step out, but we can let you know when that's over, and you're welcome to come back for the rest of the meeting then.
Thank you.
All right?
I think I'm here for the second executive session.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay.
Would you like us to step out now?
I guess it's,
Do you want to pick an executive session switch back to back? Or do you think to, what?
We wanted to get the attorney on early.
Oh,
Yeah.
they're expensive, yes. Sorry about that. Shane, yes, please, step out.
yeah,
I'll make a motion to enter.
I knew I didn't.
I'll make a motion to enter executive session, and I'm assuming, what's the, one MRSA 405,
6C.
is it still 6C?
Yep. Second.
So you folks, yes, you're going to have to step out just for a few minutes, and we'll call you back in.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. And you guys have a vote? Motion and a second? All in favor?
I make a
There was a motion, there was a second. All in favor?
Yeah.
All this information from,
Thank you.
so one of the questions, when you start looking at bylaws and all that, and it just came to mind. So request information from
Thanks again,
attorneys.
Jeff.
Can any commissioner ask for attorney's input?
I would hope not.
I would hope not. Correct.
I
Well,
think
that's where I'm coming from.
We as a commission
Okay,
have passed at the last meeting.
so that should be something put into our bylaws.
Sorry, didn't mean to recognize you sitting there next to me.
Traditional chair.
I think I saw you anybody one night on Zoom.
Votes for. So if you have a problem with another commissioner, you can request.
Yes.
As the chair, request it to be continued.
Yeah.
And
I
then
saw it on.
I've noticed we have a lot
I
of.
still have the old one, so the only change was
Is
this.
that,
Yeah.
is that a no-no?
Yes.
To take notes in executive session?
Yes.
And then,
Everybody, I was looking around the room.
I wrote down one word.
Well, I was kind of writing questions down.
Well,
We're
right.
gonna get it written from him anyway.
We're gonna get it written from him anyway, but I'm
Yes.
just,
Yeah.
just saying it should
Right.
be. Yeah, I had two questions. The only thing I wrote was that who requested it and,
I wrote down undisturbed.
yeah. So I guess that's another.
We're gonna get him anyway.
You're gonna get them.
Well, no, we're not getting
No,
notes,
no,
we're
we're
getting
getting
opinion.
his.
So there's a difference between notes and opinion. But just a thought, I guess, Mary Ann, you and I
I,
can.
yeah, I added that in there just as under
Okay.
the
Okay.
executive session, just to remind them, no notes should be taken, and then the one respectfully given.
So, let's move on to the staff report. Mark?
I think Eric is going to cover everything that I was going to bring up. There were a couple of items. You're covering the DOT? Yep. Okay, yep, I don't have anything on that.
Yep, I've got a few different things that weren't in my report that either came up since then or didn't really fit into water quality, watershed. An update on the proposal that was approved by the board at our last special meeting. That was for Dr. Ken Wagner to look into our water quality data and give us some ideas if we needed to do an in-lake treatment again or do a treatment in the tributaries with alum. Looking at some of the elements of our draft watershed management plan. So that proposal was approved. And an update on that. So Ken will start working on that in May. And the idea was that he might have some options for us that if we needed to put those in place this year, if we saw some drastic changes in water quality, if we needed to look at doing an alum treatment or look at putting alum dosing stations somewhere else in the watershed, that maybe we could do that this year. He won't have a report done for us in time for us to do put something in this year, but he will have it for us likely at the end of summer, early fall, so that if we needed to do something that he recommends in that report next year, we'll be ready to go. So we were hopeful that he would have something for us this year that we could work with, but it's going to take he's super busy and always says he's almost retiring, and so just the timeline for that is stretched out a bit. But we do have, that proposal was for $47,100, and we have that available in the sinking fund. One of the other things as part of that, oh, sorry. Ryan.
So, if we're not gonna do that, what's the potential impact if we don't have the information to do something this year, but need to? How will we know, oh, shoot, we've gotta do it no matter what, report or no report?
So if we needed to do, we'll know by what we see for water quality trends, because we're looking at data every day, which is great. So if we needed to do an alum treatment again, we kind of have the plan for what we did last time set up for that, and that was my next thing. So if we needed to do that again, we could without his involvement. He probably would. We'd want his opinion here and there, on an on-call kind of basis. But this work was basically to look at what are our other options rather than just doing a full lake treatment, every few years. It was looking at, can we put smaller dosing stations in the tributaries coming into the lake, and maybe those only kick on when it's raining really hard. So it's like a load. So that's the kind of thing he's looking into, our other options. So we don't need that necessarily to take action. Yeah. And that was my next update, was the permit that we received from Maine DEP to do the alum treatment in 2019 is due for renewal this month in 2023. It was good for 5 years. So I'm putting together a permit renewal application. It's fairly simple. It's resubmitting the same application we did in 2019, basically updating dates and contacts and that kind of thing. So that will go to DEP hopefully this week or next week for renewal. And so that doesn't mean that we're taking any action. It just means if we need to in the future, we have the permit to do it. As of right now, we have no plan to do an alum treatment. We would just have to watch our water quality again. For the CDM Smith proposed work, which is looking at the Grace Lawn Pit area, I just got that proposal this morning and sent it out to you, so I don't expect that everybody's had a chance to read it. But that would be when they looked at the watershed line through the Grace Lawn Pit area, and they kind of gave us two options, and here's this area of uncertainty. To figure that out a little bit more, they had given us an option for additional work, which is to do basically 3D modeling of the area. So that's task number one for them to do that they've talked about in this proposal. The second task was a request from the drinking water program. So when I was out in December, I think Mike and Kevin went out with drinking water program to the Grace Lawn Pit site with drinking water program, and they, in a letter back, said what they would like for more information. So I provided that to CDM Smith, and they think that under their modeling work that they had originally recommended, that might answer several of drinking water program's questions. If not, they can do further work, but they think that first task might cover the second one. And I talked to the project manager for CDM Smith, and she said what they would like to do is that first task, then check in with drinking water program. If they want a deeper dive, they can do that, but they thought that might save some effort on their end to answer their questions without doing a ton of field work. I don't know if that's going to be the case or not, but that's what they proposed, and if we want to modify that, we certainly can. And the last part of this was looking at the most southwestern corner of Grace Lawn Pit that currently is within the watershed. And Mike Gatto did provide us with updated contours of it that would suggest it's an internally draining area, that it would not drain towards the lake based on topography. But what we're unsure of there is the groundwater. And it looks like they would look at that area with their 3D model as well. And so that looks like, and I know Kevin, I got your message about this too, that it looks like it's more of a desktop exercise rather than a field sampling exercise. So that's a conversation I do need to have with them. So this is a lot of modeling work to hopefully get more answers, but I think we might need more than that. And this proposal is for $19,800, and the work should be done by May 31st. So, again, I just got this morning, so I don't know that I'm ready to ask for board action on it. I just wanted to bring it to your attention. I think I have more questions for them before I would ask to say, yes, okay, let's go forward with it. Maybe, I don't know if we were planning on another meeting in May. I know we've had several special meetings, but if this was something to, I don't know, if there were changes to this that I received, could it go to the board through an email, or do we need to have that as a meeting topic again if we wanted to move forward? I don't know.
Can I add a couple of things?
Yeah.
So like Erica, Erica forwarded this to me today, and I quickly read through it as quick as I could. And one of the questions that popped into my mind was, this is a very important topic. There's three things here that we need to determine. Obviously, both communities are all looking at this. A lot's hinging on it. And we need to determine what is in the watershed and what is out of the watershed. And so there's that. This proposal, I do agree that, I want to almost send this proposal to the drinking water program before we do the work and ask that, get that interpretation now, because I don't want to spend money and then find out, well, we want you to do it differently. I think it would be worth, getting them to confirm that, yes, we agree with that. Let's do that. I think that would be a worthwhile thing. But this is to me, this is kind of a time-sensitive thing. There's You know, we're going to be talking to Mr. Gatto later, but this, a lot of things moving forward and a lot hinges on this, and this work is very important for everybody.
I expected some water monitoring wells or more monitoring wells or something for field work, not just a tabletop exercise, I guess. Is that what you were thinking?
Yeah, I don't know how far the modeling will get them. I mean, maybe we'll give them, you know, certain confidence without needing the field data, but, you know, Kevin, you mentioned drinking water program, brought that up as something they wanted, right?
Right.
I know I think they didn't write that out in that letter, which is what they based the proposal off of, so I think that I didn't communicate that because it wasn't in their drinking water program's request letter, right? So I think that's a good idea if the board is okay if we run this by drinking water program and see if it meets their request first before moving forward with it. Yes.
I mean, they're really clear on the second page that what they're gonna do at the bottom there. Based on the visualization model, need to focus additional field data collection and/or ground flow modeling can be assessed. While it's likely that additional field dispersion, including installation of new monitoring wells, will be required to more precisely delineate the watershed preliminary visualization, the modeling analysis can make this investigation more efficient. So they're basically, when I read this, it was like, they need to do this so they can know where to put the wells.
It's the preliminary.
Right, so it's like, they need to do this to get to that next step.
Yeah.
And by doing this, it informs where those wells are gonna have to go and what else they're gonna need to do. And so therefore, if we wait, we're simply gonna have to do this and do that again anyways.
Yeah.
That's how I read it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But what you said from your conversation with CDM Smith indicated they were thinking that their modeling would be sent to them to the drinking water program to see if that was sufficient. So I don't think that they were saying that they would necessarily go out and do the field investigations.
Not for the $19,000. But they're saying.
No, I assume that, but I'm concerned like that the drinking water program is not going to find this sufficient. The modeling in itself.
No.
And so we're hesitate.
I completely agree they're not gonna find sufficient, but CDM Smith's gonna tell us where to put the wells to be sufficient.
Well, my understanding was they were going to then send the model to the drinking water program. Then we're going to have this lag while the drinking water program decided, oh, is the model sufficient? And then we were going to come back with.
And I see it as they're gonna send it to the drinking water program to say, here's what we think we're gonna need to do to get the information you really want. Is that gonna be sufficient? And that's what this is for, is to get to that level. That's how I read it.
Okay.
Just receiving it today, I haven't had enough time to assess either way, but I do agree with both of you. It's hard.
So just give them time.
Yeah, well,
Give
then I
them
think,
some time
Yeah.
and get back to us.
Okay.
Well, I would trust staff. I mean, I'd be more than happy. I mean, are we planning on another meeting to follow up with this, special meeting, or is this gonna be wait till June?
That's up to the commissioners.
Then I would say that I'd authorize them to spend up to that amount after they have a conversation if they feel comfortable. So that way I'm gonna wait till June to get another answer from us.
I would certainly second that motion.
Okay.
I would ask where the money's coming from and if we
Well,
have
that's
it.
up to, I gotta.
That was-
That's over there.
I believe she wants to use the sinking fund for that.
And we have funding,
Yep, there's
including those.
$105,090.
And that's after we spend the 47 or before?
That's after that, and there's still a little bit of money owed to CDW for the other project that they were doing. It's like $500 to $63 or something.
I'll make that motion.
I do,
Including the funding source, thank you.
Yeah, and I'll second it.
so clarify that.
But my motion is to authorize staff, after consultation with CDM Smith, to spend up to the estimated amount out of the sinking fund to move this forward, and if they don't feel, on the motion there. Is that your second?
Yeah.
Yep. And then as far as discussion, basically, I'm trusting them to ask their questions and trust them that if they're comfortable that this will work, we're good. If not, we'll come back in June, do it again.
I had a point from the letter that was sent to Kevin from the drinking water program that is asking a joint proposal for Lewiston Water District Department and Auburn Water District for the proposal. And I am wondering why LawPac is sitting in doing this proposal instead of the drinking water, Auburn Drinking Water Program and City of Lewiston.
Well, I think, if I may answer, so the gist is how I took it, and I think Mike and I discussed this, but it was the partnership, and this is the example of that partnership, and it is watershed based, so that's why we felt this was the appropriate place to deal with it. So if Auburn Water right now is looking to do it, they may want to change who pays what on percentages, interlocal agreement type thing, whereas this clearly falls under watershed boundaries, watershed establishment. There's already a cost share agreement there.
And my understanding of what they were looking for in that directive was, if this is concluded and there's a recommendation to change the boundary line, that we agree on that and send a joint letter from both entities saying Auburn Water supports it, City of Lewiston Water supports it, this is what we're recommending. To me, from our conversations, that's what they want. They don't want it to come from Auburn Water, they don't want it to come from City of Lewiston alone, they want it to...
Yeah, I saw that, Joy, yeah.
So.
No, I'm just concerned about the cost, and because if the model comes in and then we're going to do field work, there's going to be even more money. So I just want to be sure that we're all aware of, the sources of that money. That's all.
I did ask the consultant too, this was one of the commission's questions at the last meeting, was what is the level of certainty or confidence in a watershed line that they would get from this work? And she said for the area circled in orange, so that was where drinking water program had a question.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting, since that's not what we had a question.
Right, yeah, that's where drinking water program had a question. She said they would be reasonably confident. To the east, we might be able to reduce the width of uncertainty band there some. I don't know what that means. And for the area to the southwest, unless we find additional data, the situation would be described. They would go by what she had told me. They would go by the updated contours and any other data available to make a decision about that area.
Is there the ability to ask them, instead of reasonably confident, to put a confidence percentage?
I don't see why not.
Can we all agree on that number has to be ahead of time before we know it?
I'm sorry?
Can we all agree on what that number has to be ahead of time before we know it? So that way it's not about predicting it afterwards?
I'd like it to be certainty, not reasonably confident.
Exactly.
Oh, I agree. But is 70%, 80%, 90%, what's that number? And agreeing on it ahead of time before we know what they come out with, would solve a whole lot of conversation afterwards.
Was 80% passing in college?
I don't know,
70 in high school? Where are we? 85% watershed?
I can see if it comes back to a number,
Yeah.
then it becomes.
I don't think that they're going to be able to come up with a percent.
No.
They're either certain or
They're not.
I think that needs to be in our conversations with them.
That's right.
I think that needs to be.
I want to take
follow up with
25%
them
off
on.
that
We need
bill,
to.
because you're
It
not
can't
quite
be.
certain.
We're fairly certain.
Yeah.
This needs to be.
It sounded like.
We're certain this is where you can move to.
Yep.
Or not. That's
Even
what
if
we're
that
gonna-
takes, the additional field work.
Right.
Fine.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. So we'll move forward with that.
So you had a motion in a second, and we discussed.
Was that, so all in favor of the motion? All right, thank you for that discussion.
I have
Anything else, Erica?
Yep, I have one other thing. JIG Aggregates, who owns the Graceland Pit, filed this is a copy of a notice of intent to file for a traffic movement permit with Maine DOT. This is looking at traffic that could come from a potential development of residences in the Graceland Pit. And this notice said that any interested parties may request to participate in the scoping meeting for this project. So Mike did write back to DOT, I believe, and requested that we be part of that. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add other than
Nope.
we're gonna be part of those discussions and meetings going forward?
Just understand what the plan is and how they're gonna study it and
Yeah.
understand what's going on.
That was all I had for staff update.
Okay, moving on to old business. The first item is reports from the bylaws ad hoc committee. Mary Ann and Rick.
This is a rough draft of something that started a while back ago when I did the presentation, you guys. So minimized it a little bit to be just about the procedures that we have in the meetings, because I think that's what we have questions about. So you haven't read it yet. I sent it to you, I just got on this agenda 20 minutes before the meeting. We wanted a couple key questions answered, and then we kind of gained a couple just in our discussion. So if we bring it back for a topic in the June meeting, we'll be a little bit more thoroughly knowing what you want.
Totally agree with you. I think at this point, it's just to get it in your hands, look at it, mull it over for the next month, make any suggestions. I just came up with 2 tonight, the executive session, that I think should be in here. Roles of chair, vice chair, all the way down. I think everybody just make some notes and put it together. So, and, secretary, who does what roles, and who can request different things. So this is more just informational, this is a framework for us just to start and move forward from there. And Mary Ann did most of the work. I get to talk more.
So just copy you two if we have a question or concern.
Sure, or even bring it to the next meeting and we can
Yeah.
put it on the agenda and we can just start adding it to it. Or if you want to send it to us, we can kind of put it together and then just come back with that. And you can cross off or add whatever we want at that point.
Is it worthy, since both of our city clerks are heavily involved in things like that, just have them review it and see if anything's missing, or
I
mean,
think
it
that's
just
an
give-
awesome idea.
giving a second set of eyes?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
We had another question about the majority vote and just kind of, the
Yeah.
majority's not 3, it's 5, but do we want to?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had that one too.
Yeah.
I know that, I left that in there just so that
Yeah,
I
so-
can make a correction.
Do we
You
want
don't
a
want to see,
majority?
you don't want to see the one red line when I got at the office.
Yeah.
But would it be for the 5 always, or for some situations would it be the majority of who's present
Majority who's present.
all the time?
So that's the question, if you have only 3 members.
Well,
That
you
are
have to,
present.
you have to,
So
first of all,
what's
you
the
haven't
quorum?
determined quorum.
What's good quorum gonna be?
Right, so therefore, you gotta determine quorum and then the majority of
Correct.
those present.
So
because you have
it's
to have
more
quorum.
the quorum, that was my
Right,
question.
yeah, it's more the quorum.
What will be the quorum for this board?
7 or 5, I would say. The
So
nine
I have to.
member board?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, there's 9 members?
There's 9,
Nine
so 5 would be a simple majority, but I would have to sit down and look at some different language probably because it would have to be a representation of both sides before you could do that.
Okay, so, let's,
You'll be getting those.
excellent.
Okay, good, good. You're trying to keep it simple, just keep that in mind too.
Yeah, this is gonna be a very loose Robert's rules, at least we'll have some kind of,
Well, you need to state that, because
that's another good point to put down later on.
because you put Robert's Rules of the Order, that means somebody's gonna tell you in parliamentary procedure for.
Correct,
Yeah.
so, we're gonna put loose Robert rules.
Yeah, don't call it Robert's.
Just call it law.
I like that.
Rules of order. Thank you.
Thank you.
For your work on
That's
this.
it. Yeah.
We'll have some appointments, so we,
Let's move on to the Trails ad hoc committee.
Yep, real quick and brief, Alan and I were able to meet a couple times, once with Jonathan Labonte, he's the Director of Transportation for the City of Auburn, former mayor, you probably all know him. Something that Mr. Gatto actually started with Mr. Lamy back in the day, the Southern Link Trail. We're just coordinating, now that Erica's back and Carolyn, I've reached out to her to maybe get together and walk some portions of it from the boat launch area. I don't know if when you guys drive by the Route 4 corridor and that jug handle thing that they did out there, you'll see a paved path that goes into the boat launch area. That's basically could be the beginning of it. But there's also parcel 4 that they're talking about, it's Lopek property, and then we can connect Lakeshore Drive. That's something that could be reasonably done as a winter trail this winter, but our goal, I'm hoping, is to have a winter trail open from the boat launch area to the community college. So we have volunteers on all ends. Perkins Ridge Snow Travelers have offered their equipment to go in and brush out and do non-invasive, no dirt work or anything like that, nothing would cause erosion. They've also got the Lake Association, which I'm involved with, that's offered $5,000 in matching funds, and Labonte thinks there's a few bucks around the city to be had. And that was one of my questions for Ms. Roy, is there a line budget item that's not going to take away from, obviously, a lot of the important work that you guys are doing in the watershed to if we could come up with another $5,000 from LawPEC, we could certainly get $20,000 towards beginning the efforts of the winter trail portions of it. And then, of course, at some point, recreational trail grant, which is a federal program, we can get loads of money to do this professionally, ADA accessible. If everyone's goal, like he had proposed in that original plan, to be a 6-foot wide paved path with overlooks and benches here and there, if that's going to be the goal, it'll be some invasiveness. There'll be some runoff concerns. There'll be some erosion control measures that we'll have to put in place. But if it's a winter trail and people are just snowshoeing, fat biking, hiking, that type of stuff, just like the Spring Road and other places that LawPEC already allows that type of use, we can control, no pollution whatsoever, So anyway, if you have any questions, please reach out to me. I know I had a question for Tracy. I'm not sure if there's any answers yet, but I'll give her time to get back to us, Alan and I, if you have a chance.
Well, I looked at the, your operating budgets are kind of very, there's not a lot of wiggle room in your operating budgets. The only one that I could see that might have some leftover funds is your source protection management. Last year, you came in under budget. The year before, you came in under budget. But I know Erica said that there's a lot of projects that they're going to be starting, so that might eat up all of those funds. But I don't see anything in any of the other funds. You're really scarce on.
What's the nice thing about in-kind work and volunteers? $1 makes $30. So if at the next meeting, if we can get it back on the agenda, if there's any kind of funding whatsoever, that would work out pretty good as far as getting some of that work started. Anything, Alan?
No.
You ready for your snowshoes this winter?
You're ready.
One question I had for that, so from boat launch to CMCC, any commission property there, that's the Zone 1 restricted area, no trespass. For Auburn Waters, all water district's bylaws, do those need to be changed to allow for this trail?
Certainly have to be looked at.
Yeah, I do know there's some updated language, but everything was on held
Everything's
on
on
hold for the lawsuit. Because a lot of the existing trails are also on level 1, like the Spring Road, and
Spring Road's not.
Not in Zone 1.
No.
it's not in Zone 1.
No.
So with the Polk property, not the Polk property, but the parcel 4 off along Route 4.
That I think is where it's split. I have to look at the map, but I think that's where it
Point of
splits off
pine to the boat
into
launch.
Zone 2.
Right. That's zone
Yeah,
2.
Zone 2, right, so where the line
That's
goes
Zone
across
2.
the lake, up, yep.
So all the areas basically along the southern part of the lake.
area, yeah,
Mhm.
there's no trespass. If it's commission property.
That would have to be defined and sorted through.
Yeah.
No future agenda item, please. I don't want to take any more time.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. So I'm reporting back that Glenn talked to the towns of Mine, Hebron, and Buckfield, and they do have agreement for him to represent them for the next year. So it wasn't a 3-year
It will be next time,
agreement.
but whoever sits in this chair.
We're working on it. Time,
You
but
get bond
anyway,
here, is that what she's saying.
Glenn is with us for another year. The CDM estimate for scope of work, which we just covered, correct?
Yep, I did, I jumped ahead.
And Erica, next is the watershed management plan update.
Yes, so I got that right before I went out on leave. I have it, I'm reading through it. I don't remember if before I went out, if I sent it to you all with a link. I thought that I put it on my OneDrive and shared it with everybody, but I don't know. I'll make sure that everybody on the commission has access to it. It's gonna take me a little bit to get through and get my notes together, but once I make sure everybody has access to it, can we have it on the June meeting? And if you guys have comments, questions, feedback, could you provide that to me for the June meeting? And then hopefully we can get it wrapped up, because it is a draft edition as it stands right now. We could get our feedback, I can provide that to CDM Smith, and they can wrap it up for us.
Okay. All right. And for the public, the watershed management plan is rewritten about every 10 years, and so this is an update of the watershed management plan. We hired a consultant to do that for us, and so we're going to review the draft plan that just came in and talk about that in June. All right, new business. Maybe before we go into executive session again, so that the public doesn't have to wait again. Mike and Kevin, we're going to have a brief discussion on the clerks.
So I did bring this back to the Auburn Water District. I presented them with a draft description of the job description of clerk, and that was, they reviewed it. They did table that discussion. Some of the discussions revolving that is they're really hoping that these get sorted through and adopted by the commission and become part of, you know, how we define the clerk positions. So they have received it and they've tabled it.
Can you share the job description? I don't think I've seen it yet.
Sure, yeah.
Maybe it matches some of these bullets, maybe that doesn't, but.
So just to clarify, they're looking to have the bylaws finalized that will include the job description of the clerk?
Yeah, they wanted to know that the bylaws were adopted and how that determines the clerks and who those are and their roles.
Okay.
It just became more of a discussion piece, so they said until that's finalized and determined, they were going to table it.
Okay.
That's what we're trying to figure out. That's exactly what we're trying to figure out.
Do you think we should just hire a clerk to take care of the incidental businesses that we need to do? I mean,
I had a question on clerk. I mean, where we have the watershed manager that we employ, can they serve as the clerk? Is there any reason why Erica couldn't serve as the clerk?
Other than Erica not wanting to do it.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
right, but.
Thanks in a public meeting.
no, I mean, obviously, you know, pay would be increased per duty. I mean, we wouldn't ask you to do that for free. I mean,
The only problem with having somebody as external, we've talked about this, is they don't have access to information, resources. So to have somebody external, they're not in the networks, they're not, it,
So if you get the two
You know-
clerks, he can go back to the city of Lewiston and type in and get whatever information, and you can,
you know, the way that, and Heather probably has the longest tenure here in the history of how things were. You know, talking with Sid, talking with Kevin, you know, I'm secretary right now, but traditionally secretary might have actually been held by a commissioner. And the co-clerks, actually, one co-clerk would kind of give the information and help present the meeting items. The other co-clerk was taking the minutes that then would be polished up, given to the secretary, that would then just sign them once they were approved. And that was really the role of the secretary. How it's evolved to where it is now, you know, it's because we don't have these, you know,
Right.
and, you know, how do we get back to where, you know, whatever makes sense? Should it be the watershed manager? Should it be co-clerks? I think it's important that we have, you know, bylaws and then an understanding and a job description that,
Do you and Kevin have an opinion? Should it be co-clerk? I mean, is that what,
I think it offers good balance if somebody's out. Like Mike said, we do have historic information that isn't available to necessarily to this board or an outside person.
I think it would be important to make sure that we're not overburdening one entity over the other.
right?
You know, the way it was before with co-clerks, you know, they're both sharing the load. You know, if one person does it, then, you know, one entity is burdening all the work, so to speak. You know, I don't get paid to be here specifically, Kevin doesn't, but we're doing our jobs through our entities to have representation, you know, it's not,
So currently, you're both the clerks?
Currently, no one
no,
has
no clerk.
No clerk. Okay, that's what I thought.
Would you forward that information to us?
Sure.
So we can, it's a great idea, yes.
So,
Just
can I
everybody-
ask the question though, because Kevin stepped down as a clerk, so are you saying
We
you
got the,
can,
we got the opinion. I
Both-
asked Heather, and Heather got the opinion.
Both Sid and I resigned.
right,
If we're willing, Mike and I are willing to, I'm speaking for Mike, but I'm willing to. And the
okay,
city
I
of
just want to
The
Lewiston-
city-
clarify that.
The city of Lewiston's attorney told Heather that it was okay as long as Kevin was a co-clerk.
Okay.
Well, that's,
So that's
So what does
good.
the secretary do that's a commissioner that doesn't take notes? What are the
there are some
jobs
legal
that they-
things the secretary sign.
Yeah, so I mean,
So
typically
they
a
do
staff
the
prepares,
corporate-
staff would prepare minutes that they
And
would
corporate
review.
charter for,
Right.
like, switching of treasurer, so they can take that to the bank.
Your clerk would prepare the paperwork, but the secretary would sign it and execute it.
Exactly.
Yep.
Okay. Any further discussion? Mike will send that to you. Move forward with that. Thank you. I wanted to bring up the consent agenda change, which was what we actually did today, was to take the water quality and watershed report out of the consent agenda and just leave the other two in that, because I generally feel like it's important for us to talk about what's going on in the watershed and the lake, even if it's brief. I'd kind of like to, so people can ask questions and feel like they can have more of a discussion on that. So that's what my consent agenda change proposal is.
Is there a requirement to have the minutes separate from the consent agenda?
I didn't hear your question.
Is it required that the minutes have to be voted on separately, or can they be? put
I don't
in
know if
consent?
it's a requirement, and since we're running really loose bylaws, we could make our own. I have never seen them on a consent agenda.
Because there's no discussion about a consent agenda. If you put the minutes, you have a question on it.
You have to, like,
But you
have
still
to-
always have the opportunity to
pull 'em off.
pull it off.
I
And
mean,
likewise for the reports, you'd
Right.
always have that capability to pull those off.
Since I've been here, this is the first time anybody had anything to do with the minutes, I think.
Consent
Now it's just
agenda
being-
for those items is fairly new. It's been in what, the last year?
Yes.
I mean, we never had them as a
I mean,
consent before.
financials never even was under a
No.
consent agenda.
No, I
Right.
mean, it was
And that's
reviewed
a-
every meeting, and I think the point is that got lengthy at times, so maybe we
Mhm.
just put a maximum amount of time, you know?
Yeah,
It's gonna be 10 minutes for these 3 items, I don't know.
because especially with this being a small organization and, you know, the segregation of duties with the treasurers, the auditors do look at a financial presentation per se on a monthly basis, not just, here's the report and, so, I mean, that would be up to the whole group if we wanted to retain the consent versus allocating kind of time slots. And that's my note that I have to go to my other meeting.
Thank God
Okay.
I don't.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Heather.
I don't know, I guess
I
the
think
saying
I'm fine
5 minutes, or it
Yeah, I
just
think
ended
I'm
up
fine
being
with
lengthy.
taking them
I remember
off,
that.
but limiting the time. I'm fine with
Do we
that.
want to propose someone make a motion, or do we need the motion for that?
We have no rules yet. You
The,
make the
the, the
rules.
chair, the chairman,
Take
the
it
chairman's
off.
in charge of the agenda, so
Okay.
however you write the agenda is how we
All
have to
right,
live with it.
So
so
put, like,
I'm
just put it
proposing
in
that we
for
just
minutes.
remove the word consent agenda and put, you know, a time of like 10 minutes
Yep.
maximum
For these 3.
for these 3 items, and How's that sound?
Perfect.
Sounds good.
All right, so future agendas, we'll do that, but, all right. All right, moving on. This was in, I don't know if we have time for the role of superintendent and real estate discussion. Is it okay if we defer that till June so that we can get to our executive session?
Agreed.
Agree? Okay, we'll move that to June. What?
Is that part of this? Or is it- No, is it part of the? Oh, so we're
It just
talking about it?
Well, it just came in, so
Oh,
it's
so
not on the
we're-
agenda.
Oh, okay, I didn't know, because this came out this morning, if it was updated, if we're talking about that or not.
We're not at this point. We will bring it.
It should be looked at.
I'll be there.
It should be looked at.
Oh, that'll be, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so, at this point,
I'll make a motion to enter executive session under MRSA 4056C.
all right, thanks for
Second.
coming.
I'll talk to you tomorrow.
All in favor?
We're doing a whole.
Thank you, Chairman.
It was coming.
Motion to move out of.
No, you're out. You're out of executive session.
So,
Everyone in favor of moving, raise your hand.
5:52.
I might